Hello there, and welcome back to the channel to another Versus episode. And this one is going to be on the Alliance versus the Taelons, and what would happen if these two powers came up against one another. If they were somehow able to breach the fabric of reality and come into each other's sphere, what would happen? Now, to equalize this, as always, we've got to have a bit of suspension of disbelief, because obviously the technologies of the respective universes can be quite different, so we've got to assume they can harm one another. I don't think either one of these powers is particularly much more advanced than the other, so I think that should be relatively easy in this case. So let's get started on this Versus. Let's start with the Alliance. To be clear, this is the Alliance from the Firefly and Serenity universe. The Alliance is the inner system part of a human system which has been inhabited since the human race had to leave Earth. They somehow got here, so we have to assume that they've got some kind of at least light speed travel, but I suspect they have FTL, it's just we don't know much about it. So again, suspension of disbelief, they have it, but it's not widely available. Most Alliance ships do seem to move around at sublight velocities. They're quick, certainly, but they don't seem to generally travel at faster than light speeds. Merely the very powerful engines that are able them to maneuver around the system with ease at maybe, shall we say, near light velocities. Now, the vessels themselves are generally very tall, extremely well armed, and extremely organized ships. The Alliance is known as a beacon of civilization, or at least that's how it likes to see itself. They're an extremely organized and disciplined, highly cultured society that's a blend of Western capitalism and Eastern, more left-leaning ideologies. Basically, when the colonies were created, the two big superpowers of Earth were Western powers like the United States and Eastern powers like China, and as a result, linguistically and culturally, the modern Alliance is a fusion of these two societies that have colonized the inner worlds. The outer worlds are a little bit more wild, but ultimately it's all united now under the flag of the Alliance. Their military is a typical human-style military, extremely well trained, disciplined, with massive financial investment. Their general technology is somewhat familiar. They utilize railguns and other projectile weaponry, with energy weapons being limitedly available, but they're not very widespread. They are quite good with neurotoxin weapons, genetic engineering, and generally with certain other more exotic weapon systems, but those are highly specialized. General day-to-day operations, we're talking about basic projectile weapons, but very advanced versions of them. And their ships are similarly armed. Missile systems, railguns, things of that nature. But basically projectile, things we would be familiar with. Beyond that, on a biological level, their race are human. If you're not too familiar with what human anatomy is like, they are bipedal, they have binocular vision, they're quite intelligent, but intelligence varies from individuals. Some people, for example, still think the Earth is flat, and then you've got people that don't. And everything in between. So they're a competent species with a lot of diversity, and they have a rich heritage that draws on, for the military is able to draw on, to create a very balanced and broad, capable military force that we have seen will use strategic weapons and very deadly tactics quite liberally. Next, we have the Taelons. They are from the Earth Final Conflict universe. They're a relatively endangered species. They're a race of aliens that have an odd ability to occasionally make their skin kind of go transparent, but that's an ability, I suppose. They're an asexual species that have neither male nor female gender specifically, but seem to be capable of some kind of asexual reproduction, is what I always assumed it would be. They're technologically highly advanced. They have FTL capability, but it is still relatively limited. Their main vessels are known as a mothership. They're large, imposing vessels capable of atmospheric entry and hovering. They're well armed with fairly unusual but energy-based weapons. They do retain some kind of shielding capabilities. They're a very advanced people with highly advanced computer systems, propulsion, and energy generation capabilities. They've been embroiled in a long war with a race called the Juridians for a very long time, but the Juridian War is over for the purposes of this. They don't have them in their existence anymore. They're no longer at war with them. But the Taelons have come out of that war with massively diminished numbers. They actually wanted humans as cannon fodder soldiers to help in their war because they simply lacked the numbers anymore to really continue on the war. This cycle of conflict with the Duridians have been devastating to both civilizations. Interestingly, both races were actually related and had a single common ancestor, and their hatred for one another was almost endless, to the point where it drove both races to near extinction. The Taelons are relatively limited in number and don't have much of an ability to reproduce. As a result, although their ships are very powerful, they don't have very many of them anymore, and they have no real infantry to speak of. In terms of their anatomy, the Taelons are physically not as durable as a human, generally. They're pretty tough, but a human is thought to be able to overpower one in a hand-to-hand fight. However, they are long-lived, highly intelligent, and you have to get through their technology to really do them any harm. And they have, again, some exotic technologies, particularly ability to mind control and attach weapons of their technology to a human that can then turn a human into a weapon for them. So even though they themselves not necessarily the best fighters, they have an ability to adapt enemy combatants to become soldiers for their own, which is going to matter, I think. So with all that out of the way, basic understanding and overview of both civilizations. So how would a conflict between these two civilizations actually go? And I think we can assume that the Alliance are probably not the aggressor. They are probably sitting in their home system, minding their own business, when one day the Taelons turn up, the companions. Just like they did on Earth in their own universe, they try to seduce the Alliance, try to trick them, but the Alliance, they're not the same as the humans they met on Earth in their own universe. These humans are aggressive, belligerent, and extremely distrustful of the Taelons instantly. They see through their BS and they immediately go on the attack. The first Taelon ship is attacked by swarms of attacking Alliance warships. It is overwhelmed and disabled very quickly. They're taken prisoner, and some of the Taelons are on board, and they're interrogated by the Alliance because that's what they like to do, and they try to get inside their heads and understand them, but the Taelons are impervious to such technologies. But they are very seductive, and they make promises, they make all kinds of concessions, and they even get a few of the humans working with them, and they start to show them how some of their technology works, notably some of their weapons, bioweapons technology, which attaches to the humans, and those humans then become their servants. By this point, the rest of the Taelons have found out what's happened, and more Taelon ships are on the way. Now this isn't many ships because the Taelons don't have a lot of ships, but when they arrive they instantly start fighting. But the Taelons that have been captured and are being kept on one of the Alliance worlds have managed to infect several of the humans that live there and trick them into putting on their technology, which has brought them under their control. So they're beginning to take over from within. So now the Alliance soldiers are having to go up against their own troops. The reinforcements from the Taelons deploy additional equipment to their own people on the ground. By this point there are various humans who are already working with them covertly, and others that are working with them not of their own volition, thanks to Taelon technology. Some of the humans on the outer world see the Taelon invasion as a possibility to get the Alliance off their back, and the companion lies to them were a little bit more successful, and they begin equipping those humans with their weapons and their technology, again bringing them under their sway and their control, unknowingly making themselves slaves to the Taelons, and once again using them to attack the Alliance. The Alliance as a result has to spread its forces out, so even though the Taelons don't have many ships, and one-on-one, an Alliance warship and a Taelon vessel, they're about an even match. The Alliance is actually on the back foot on this. They're having to fight a war on two fronts. They're having to fight their own soldiers that have been turned against them, as well as directly against the Taelons who are invading. The Taelons establish bases on outer worlds, which the Alliance has limited presence on. Worlds such as Miranda, that's an uninhabited world, and out there with the Reavers. The Reavers, because of their chaotic nature, are relatively easily dealt with by the Taelons, and they're able to destroy them. But the Alliance is a different story. It's much more militarily effective. The Taelons' greatest weakness is their overconfidence. They believe in themselves and their technology, absolutely, and they think this is going to be an easy victory. But the Alliance, they're a sadistic power. They're brutal and they're savage, and they have little regard for life. They managed to start convincing even the outer colonies that, you know what, you might not like us, but that alien menace has enslaved your own people, and many of the people in the outer worlds begin to realize this, and the old Brown Coat Rebellion now turns with the Alliance. The system moves as one. The only humans that are now on their side are the ones that have been put under sway, but every human that is captured is slapped on with some Taelon tech to turn them into a soldier for them. But the Alliance begins to turn the tide. The Taelons' limited numbers is their greatest Achilles heel. Their civilization's weakness is they can no longer retreat. They've invested too much into this. It becomes a battle to the death. The Taelons, though, are incapable of replacing their ships. Every time they lose a vessel now, they're finding it difficult to replace it. See, the Taelon homeworld's a wasteland by this point. The Duridian War, as I said, had weakened their civilization to the point where they're not able to fully recover. They need to win here because they need to take over. Their limited resources they're funneling in back from their homeworld, they're meager at best. But the Alliance manages to capture one of the Taelons' teleportation technologies that takes you to their homeworld. They send explosives through and they obliterate it from their end. Where the Alliance was before using strategic weapons against its own people, now those very strategic weapons actually become their salvation. Because the Taelons, they're trying to pump resources back to their homeworld to build more ships, but their overconfidence lets their guard down, and the Alliance is able to capture the teleporter that they're using to get them home, and they sever it. They send nukes through, obliterate the Taelon homeworld, and then shut that crap down. And the Taelons are now forced into a war to end all wars for their civilization. They have to win, otherwise it is going to be annihilation. But unfortunately, their inability to replace their ships, their massively diminishing numbers with an already small population of probably no more than a few hundred individuals, is not enough to take on the billions that are now supporting the Alliance. The collective forces of humanity bearing down on them is a crushing weight, and one they can simply not bear. Eventually forcing the Taelons, the few members of them, such as Za'an, who's a fanatic who wants to carry on fighting, but Za'or, who is more moderate, into a capitulation, a total surrender. But the Alliance, they're not interested in surrender, and the Taelons realize the monumental mistake they have made engaging this enemy. The Alliance ships seem more crude and basic compared to Taelon vessels, and in some areas their technology is inferior, but when it comes to military tech, they're on an even footing, and the Alliance's greater numbers, vast resources, intact shipyards, and willingness to incur huge losses, including dropping tactical weapons on their own converted armies that are now serving the Taelons, didn't matter to them. Millions are dead just to kill a few hundred Taelons, but they do come out on top, and the Taelons are defeated, and I think that's how this conflict will go. It won't even be a particularly long one. I think outside chances it's going to last about a year. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think the Taelons might come out on top? And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching.